Welcome to phantom fiction, where shadows speak and darkness tells its tales. Here, the ordinary twists into the unknown, and every whisper hides a secret. Brace yourself for stories that linger long after the lights go out. Dare to listen, if you can handle the fear. My fearless fiends, welcome once more to phantom fiction, where shadows speak and secrets linger just beneath the surface. I'm Mistress Malicious, your guide through the wicked world of the dark and strange. Tonight we set sail on Silent Lake, a place that promises solitude, but delivers something far darker. For one lone fisherman, the still waters hold echoes of the past, a past that refuses to stay buried. Beware, my dear darklings, of the things you disturb in the depths, for they may just reach up and drag you under. And now, join me as we venture into Silent Lake. Keep your eyes wide open, and whatever you do, don't let go. The moon hung low over Silent Lake, casting a pale glow on the still waters. James had chosen this secluded spot for its reputation. No other anglers for miles, no disturbances. Just him, his thoughts, and the promise of a catch. The forest surrounded the lake like a dark fortress, and not a single breeze rippled the surface. It was unnaturally quiet. He had been out there for hours, his small rowboat gently drifting, the line in his hands slack with anticipation. As midnight approached, a thick mist began to roll in, creeping across the water like a living thing. The silence was suffocating, and James found himself listening harder than before, hoping for the familiar splash of a fish, the rustling of the woods, anything but this eerie stillness. Then it came. A faint ripple across the water, followed by a soft, rhythmic tapping against the hull of his boat. Tap, tap, tap. James squinted through the mist, but the fog was too dense to see anything beyond a few feet. The tapping continued, slow and steady, as if someone, or something, was knocking. He pulled his flashlight from his pocket and shone it across the water. The beam cut through the mist, revealing nothing but endless grey. Tap, tap, tap. Closer now, louder. His breath quickened and he gripped his fishing rod tighter, the hairs on his arms standing on end. Suddenly, a massive tug on his line nearly yanked him out of the boat. He regained his balance, adrenaline surging, and began to reel it in. Whatever was on the other end was strong, impossibly strong. His heart pounded as he pulled, his muscles straining, the rod bending to its limit. The tapping had stopped. The line went slack. For a moment, there was nothing but the sound of his own laboured breathing. Then something broke the surface. Just a shadow at first, then more defined, a pale, bloated hand, reaching out from the depths. James recoiled in horror as he realised it wasn't a fish he'd hooked, but something far worse. A second hand emerged, then a head, human but wrong, its eyes wide and lifeless, its mouth gaping open as if silently screaming. The body dragged itself up the line, water pouring off its rotted skin, pulling closer to the boat with each unnatural movement. James tried to let go of the rod, but his fingers wouldn't obey. Paralysed by a fear he had never known. The corpse was at the edge of the boat now, its eyes fixed on him, empty yet filled with a dark hunger. It leaned forward, and James felt a cold, wet grip on his ankle. He screamed, thrashing, trying to kick it away, but the hand held firm, dragging him toward the water. He could see the endless black depths below, waiting to swallow him whole. With a final, desperate effort, James wrenched his leg free and grabbed his oar, swinging it wildly at the thing. It let out a low, guttural hiss as the oar connected, its grip loosening. He didn't wait to see if it would return. Heart racing, he began to row frantically toward the shore, his eyes darting back and forth, scanning the fog for any sign of movement. The mist seemed to grow thicker, the air colder. He could barely see the bow of his own boat now, let alone the shore. Then he heard it again. Tap, tap, tap. From all sides, the water began to stir. Ripples turned to waves, slapping against the hull. Shadows moved beneath the surface, circling. James rowed harder, panic setting in, his breath coming in ragged gasps. But no matter how hard he tried, the shore remained out of reach, swallowed by the mist. He was trapped. The tapping grew more insistent, like the desperate knocking of unseen prisoners beneath the surface. Then the whispers began, a low, mournful chorus rising from the depths, an endless litany of voices begging for release. James's heart thundered in his chest, his eyes darting wildly as pale, skeletal hands started to emerge all around his boat. They reached out of the water, grasping the sides, rocking the boat violently with an unnatural strength. He swung the oar wildly, connecting with cold, bloated flesh, but the hands kept coming. More hands, more whispers. The boat pitched and rolled under their weight, the hands clawing and pulling, and James knew it was only a matter of seconds before it capsized. He scrambled toward the centre, desperately trying to keep the boat steady, but it was no use. With one final, violent jerk, the boat flipped, throwing James into the icy black water. The cold hit him like 1,000 needles, stealing his breath. His instincts took over and he swam, kicking frantically as his heavy clothes dragged him down. His mind screamed at him to reach the surface and he burst through, gasping for air. The fog pressed in on all sides, obscuring everything. He had no idea which direction the shore was in, but he knew he had to get out of the water. He swam with all his strength, his breath coming in short, panicked bursts. The water around him rippled with movement, and he felt the brush of something against his leg, something cold, slimy. His heart seized in his chest. James kicked harder, ignoring the burning in his muscles. Then he saw it, a break in the mist, the dark outline of trees, the shore. A desperate surge of hope propelled him forward, his eyes locked on the distant trees. He was almost there. Just a little further, he could feel the mud and rocks beneath his feet now, and he scrambled forward, half crawling, half stumbling onto the shore. He collapsed onto the damp earth, sucking in deep, ragged breaths, his entire body trembling with cold and fear. But his relief was short-lived. The whispers hadn't stopped. He turned his head toward the lake and saw them, dozens of corpses, some half submerged, some standing waist-deep in the water, their empty eyes fixed on him. The fishing line he had dropped earlier slithered like a snake over the rocks and dirt, sliding toward him. Before he could react, it coiled around his ankle and pulled hard. James screamed, clawing at the ground as he was dragged backward, his nails digging into the mud. He kicked at the line, his hands scrabbling for anything to hold on to, but the ground was too slick. The corpses moved closer, pulling him back toward the water, their mouths gaping open in silent, endless screams. He thrashed wildly, twisting around to grab at the line, but it was slick with slime and held fast, tightening with every pull. The cold water lapped at his feet, then his knees. He twisted back around, trying to crawl forward, but his strength was fading. The dead continued their slow, relentless advance. With a final, panicked burst of energy, James managed to twist himself around and grab a jagged rock. He slashed at the line, fraying it just enough to loosen its grip. He scrambled to his feet, stumbling forward, trying to put distance between himself and the water. But then he felt it. A cold, skeletal hand wrapping around his wrist. Then another on his shoulder. And another. They were all around him, emerging from the mud, their eyes hollow, their mouths stretching open in grotesque hunger. His screams were lost in their whispers as they pulled him back, dragging him to the shore's edge, and then back into the freezing depths. He struggled, his lungs burning, his vision blurring, but it was no use. The last thing he saw before the water closed over his head was the moon above, disappearing into the mist. The last thing he heard was the relentless tapping, tapping, tapping beneath the waves. And then Silent Lake swallowed him whole. By morning, the fog had lifted, and the lake was still once more. But if you listen closely just as the sun begins to set, you might hear it. A faint tapping beneath the surface, and the soft, mournful whispers of those who never made it back to shore. Well, well, my brave souls. It seems Silent Lake has claimed yet another visitor. Poor James thought he could escape the lake's icy grip, but some waters run far deeper than we can ever know. Perhaps tonight's tale has taught us all a lesson. Sometimes, when the fog rolls in and the whispers grow louder, it's best to stay away, lest you too join the restless souls in the depths. Thank you, my fearless fiends, for joining me once more in the shadows of phantom fiction. Until next time, may your nightmares be sweet and your lakes remain silent.